December's flash PMI just dropped, and it's flashing a big warning sign. U.S. business activity has hit the slowest pace in 6 months. Growth is slowing sharply right as we make the turn into 2026. I want to ask you, is this the end of the post-COVID expansionary era? I am going to try to explain why or why not this could be true with data, with fundamentals, and with macroeconomic realities, while also laying out the risks and safeguards for your money, your investment in 2026, which is most important to me. This is why I started YouTube. This is why I'm coming to you every week, every day, and I want to communicate to the world. I want to give better information, better data to the world. So stay tuned if you love this shit, because I love this shit, and ask questions in the comments. I will reply to those comments, every single one of them. I'm autistic. I am driven. I am passionate. Call me whatever noun you want to call me, but I love this shit, and I'm going to bring it to you. I'm going to keep bringing it to you. So let's tackle S&P PMI. First of all, what is PMI? Well, PMI, this is super important. PMI is a purchasing manager's index of output. What does that fucking mean? It means that the USA is broken out into two things, goods and services. Services do not need to be produced, right? If you're a lawyer, do you need to produce any good? No. If you're a doctor, do you need to produce any good? No, you provide a service. If you're a waitress or a flight attendant, you provide a service, okay? So that's services. And in the USA, 80% of GDP is services. 20% is goods production. And it's very important because goods production provides product efficiency, GDP. What do I mean there? What I mean is when goods production slows down, everything slows down. When companies stop producing, it means consumers are stopping to consume and the entire economy slows down. So I can no longer provide you a discretionary service of getting your teeth done or your eyes fixed. These are elastic things that you get done when you have high confidence. Maybe you get LASIK surgery. Maybe you get veneers because you have this extra money, you have this extra confidence. When goods production slows down, confidence is lacking. So this is super important. Ask questions in the comments, interact with me. I want you to be clear on this. Now, there's two measures, the S&P Global U.S. Composite PMI Index and the PMI, the ISM PMI with the Purchasing Manufacturers Index. I'm going to cover both. The S&P one just dropped, and as you can see in time stability, it's far above 50, 55, 60, 55. It drops down to 50 here. It's a warning, and then boom, COVID. That took that. There's no production, and then the reaction from COVID brought it way higher, but now we've kind of bounced back and we're in this slow, lethargic malaise, okay? And that's what I'm going to be covering here, is the flash U.S. manufacturing PMI, 51.8. Above 50, good. Below 50, not good, okay? But, and here's all the different this is the output index, the services index, the manufacturing goods index, and this is the flash US PMI. And they're all saying about a similar thing. 6-month low, 6-month low, 3-month low, 5-month low. Okay? So that tells me that, output and demand might be healthy. People still might be consuming, but employment is suspect. Future sentiment is weak, and prices are uncertain. Inventories and supply chains are uncertain. Why is this? Some would say tariffs. Others would say war, and others would say economic uncertainty, higher interest rates, higher inflation. There's a lot of different drivers that are driving this information, this data, which is why I'm bringing it to you today, and I'm trying to be as clear as I can be so that you can understand this and make better decisions. Again, this is just the article that follows this. This is an article from Reuters. U.S. business activity growth is growing, but it hits the 6-month low in December. U.S. business activity slowed in December to the weakest pace since June, with new orders sliding for both manufacturing and service providers. Okay? So that's really important. Now, this is S&P. So you're saying, oh, we're still safe. We're above 50. Not really. Not really. The S&P PM, the ISM PMI is at 48.2 and has been below 50 for many months now. Let me read you what I saw. Economic activity in the manufacturing sector contracted in November for the 9th consecutive month. That means it's been below 50 for 9 months straight. And you'll say, okay, Macro Ghost, well, which one do I use, the S&P or the manufacturing? Well, I will tell you that the Federal Reserve likes to use the ISM more. It's an older measure. It has more data, and that's what analysts and Fed officials use. And that's just what I've known. And I wanted to get to why this is. I wanted more information. So I asked Grok. I said, Grok, I knew that it's the older one, 1948. It's the Fed's go-to. But are there any other reasons? Yes, Grok said. Market moving. I'm not concerned with this. The ISM on the first business day, it's not concerning. The timing is not concerning to me. The established role in the Fed, also not concerning. ISM has been the standard reference in Fed statements. I knew that. Powell and other officials cite it habitually because it's what everybody else says. Well, that's groupthink to me. I don't care about groupthink. 3 and 4 are what really interest me. While the S&P often correlates with better official data, higher link to the Fed's own industrial production figures, ISM's equal weighting and focus on purchasing executives give it a reputation for capturing supply chain and inflationary signals that align with Fed concerns on cost pressures. Bingo! That's what I want. That's why I'm using the ISM. And no flash preliminary. ISM is seen as the confirmed monthly read, no revision. So ISM is ISM. There's no, we did it wrong. We got to revise. No. And the Fed loves that shit, and so do I. Okay? So I learned things. I don't know everything. I know that the ISM PMI is what the Fed has used. They've always used what the market loves, what the market looks at, and we are in contraction for many, many months in a row. Okay? And there was a 2-month expansion preceded by 26 months of contraction. This is explaining to you in real time why the economy is in malaise, why you feel it at home, why there's no pumps in crypto, why there's no pumps in biotech or healthcare, in the shitcoins of the equity market, the stock market, why the big seven, the S&P big seven, are just carrying the market. This is why. So I'm happy to bring this to you, and as an explainer, keep this in your pocket, save this video, bookmark it, share it to somebody else that wants to know why. And I wanted to also bring this into play because the Federal Reserve, this is the dot plot, and it might mean nothing to you right now, but let me just back up a little. And this is interest rates, Fed funds rates, and this is the longer run. This is near term to long term. And the Fed can do 2 things to try to control the economy. Well, they look. Let me go back. They look at 2 things. They look at inflation and unemployment. And the ISM tells us a little bit about inflation and unemployment. How manufacturers, executives in the ISM, executives are scaling back employment because of uncertainty, because of inflation, because of tariffs. And this gives you a picture now on what the Fed is looking at. Now, this can change drastically. This is not set by any means necessary, and by any means. But most of the Fed, this is a Fed official right here. One dot equals 1 Fed official. And the Fed officials all see 2025 around 3.5% to 4%. And in 2026, you'll see a huge deviation. This is probably Stephen Miran, one of Trump's guys. He wants interest rates to be really low. Because when interest rates are low, that helps economic activity. That takes the pressure off the producers, the manufacturers. Why does it take the pressure off? Because their interest expense is lower. Everybody's interest expense on their debt, on their mortgage, on on your car, anything that you've borrowed becomes lower with lower interest rates. However, too low of interest rates can cause inflation, can cause speculative behavior, can cause high-risk behavior. So there is a nice equilibrium here, and it's not at 5 or 4, which we've been at for like the last 3 years. I would say, in my opinion, it's 1.5% to 3%. And that's what you're going to see from the Fed officials. Now, these can come way down if the economy starts to weaken and unemployment spikes, which I'm expecting it will. I'm expecting these Fed officials in 2026 to revise their estimates down because, as I've explained in previous videos, inflation is not really the issue anymore for now. The housing index, the housing prices are coming down, rents are coming down. The basket of, housing is such a huge percentage of inflation. It's 35 to 40%. And that's all coming down. And that's a lagged effect. So I'm not going to go too far into that. I want to stay on topic here of saying inflation is likely coming down, and the risk now becomes deflation, unemployment. Because when you have high unemployment, you have deflation. You have prices coming down. You have stock prices coming down because nobody can spend. They're all unemployed. So you understand what I'm saying? You buying what I'm selling here. So I would probably see once Trump gets a hold of the Fed, gets Jerome and his guys out of there, I think you're going to see a much looser Fed, more dots around this area, and more liquidity being put into the market. We might see some shocks. We might see a recession. That's fine. That's fine. As long as inflation is under control, rents are under control, energy is CPI, perishable goods like groceries or CPI, that's not really counted in inflation. Inflation is largely housing, goods inflation, cars, etc. Think about what you have at home that costs you money. Does your rent cost you money? Yeah, it's a huge part. Your mortgage? Yeah. Your car? It's a big part, but less than the rent, right? Should be. Your electric, your groceries, supermarket, your food, your beverages, maybe your gym memberships, those are called elastic. So those will go away. If there's a recession, people cut the most elastic goods like gym memberships or going to see the cinema, the movies. That stuff gets cut because you go into conservation mode. And when people go into conservation mode, these things cut. And why will they go into conservation mode? Because I think companies are going to start cutting staff more and more into 2026. Okay? And that gets me to this. You see how this feeds this. And there's a 73% chance that they do nothing at the next Fed meeting in January 2026, January 28th, 2026. That's going to wrap up this show. Do you know more? Do you feel like you have a better grasp on the economy? If so, drop a like, drop a comment. Thank you for staying to the end, and I will see you in the next video.